After my confession to senior sister was rejected, I was so embarrassed that I started taking my anger out on her. From that day on, bullying her became part of my daily routine. Every time she saw me, she'd grit her teeth and curse, "Su Liqian, you bastard!" But one day, everything changed. Senior sister unexpectedly lost her spiritual roots and could never cultivate again. The moment I heard the news, my heart skipped a beat. Oh no, she's crippled right at the beginning? Isn't this the perfect protagonist setup? I'm screwed. As the villain who's bullied her all this time, won't I be the first person she sacrifices after becoming stronger? Without wasting another second, I immediately gave up my bright future as the story's villain and transformed into the most devoted man alive. Senior sister, from now on, it's you and me. I'll never leave your side. Shen Yuchu was the eldest disciple of Xiaoyao sect. She was deeply favored by the Sect Master and admired by countless disciples, yet she had long abandoned any thoughts of romance, devoting herself entirely to cultivation while remaining cold and distant toward everyone around her. 3 months earlier, she had been ordered to cultivate inside a secret realm, but for some unknown reason, she wandered onto the wrong path, was corrupted by demonic energy, and her spiritual roots were completely destroyed. It was said that the Sect Master was heartbroken and sighed in despair for days. But when Shen Yuchu finally returned, instead of being welcomed back, she was about to be expelled from Xiaoyao sect. She wore nothing but rough linen clothes and looked incredibly miserable, carrying only a small bundle on her back. Everyone in the sect knew about the grudge between Shen Yuchu and me, so the crowd automatically stepped aside and made a path for me. I used to be one of her many admirers, but unlike everyone else, I actually gathered the courage to confess my feelings to her. My family had practiced medicine for generations and was fairly well known. My parents sent me to Xiaoyao sect to study the art of medicine, hoping I would one day bring honor to our family. I was full of confidence before confessing, only to be rejected without mercy. After that, I became the laughingstock of the entire sect. Humiliated and furious, I started making her life difficult every single day. Just then, on the crowded Taiji Square, a cultivator excitedly waved at me. "Su Lichuan, hurry up! This is your perfect chance for revenge. I still remember how Shen Yuchu humiliated you back then." I slowly walked over and stopped in front of Shen Yuchu before smiling mockingly. Well, isn't this senior sister? How did you end up looking like this?" "That's one nasty scar. Judging from my years of medical experience, I'm afraid it's beyond saving." "What a shame." Shen Yuchu slowly raised her head, her eyes filled with anger. Even though a long scar stretched across her face, it still couldn't completely hide the beauty she once possessed. Someone beside me immediately shouted, "Su Lichuan, she looked down on you back then, but now she's not even worthy of standing beside you. Don't go easy on her. However she humiliated you before, make sure you pay her back today." I simply smiled, reached into my sleeve, and took out a small wooden box. Inside was my family's ancestral life-saving pill, a medicine capable of repairing damaged spiritual roots. The surrounding cultivators looked at me in confusion. Shen Yuchu looked straight at me and said calmly, "If you want revenge, then do it. I'm not afraid of you." Looking into her stubborn eyes, the words slipped out before I could stop them. "Shen Yuchu, even though you hurt me deeply, it wasn't until you were about to leave Xiaoyao sect that I realized I've never stopped loving you." The entire square instantly fell silent before everyone gasped in disbelief. Honestly, even I was shocked by my own shamelessness. But being a simp was a lot better than ending up as the heroine's first victim. So I gritted my teeth, ignored everyone's whispers, and spoke righteously. Xiaoyao sect has always valued loyalty. Shen Yuchu was once our senior sister. Is this really how all of you treat one of your own? Shen Yuchu let out a faint laugh, but her eyes were still full of suspicion. You love me?" She had every reason to doubt me. Over the past few years, whenever she offended someone, I was always the first to spread the news around the sect. Little by little, everyone began keeping their distance from her, though she never cared and simply focused on cultivation. Right now, she obviously believed I was only pretending to be nice so I could humiliate her again later. I couldn't let the future heroine misunderstand me like that. Without giving her a chance to refuse, I gently grabbed her hand and placed the box containing the life-saving pill into her palm. Then, in the gentlest voice I had ever used, I said, "Shen Yuchu, you're the only person I've ever loved. From now on, it's you and me. I won't let anyone bully you ever again. Your spiritual roots can be repaired, and your face can be healed too. I promise I'll cure you. Just trust me." Shen Yuchu stood there in silence while I secretly admired my own acting skills. This excuse was absolutely flawless. Sure, she had rejected my confession before, but everyone knew that people often hated the ones they couldn't have. Who could prove I had truly stopped loving her? Besides, after everything I was doing for her now, once she regained her strength, she wouldn't stab me to death, right? If I could get the future child of destiny on my side, who in this world would dare mess with me? Just thinking about it made me smile. Shen Yuchu lowered her head and remained silent for a long moment. I took another step forward and said, "I know you don't want to leave Xiaoyao sect. Come stay with me. I have a place for you. After taking the life-saving pill, her spiritual roots still showed no signs of fully recovering, although they were in much better condition than before. I encouraged her not to give up, and she quietly nodded. The wariness in her eyes faded a little. Sometimes she'd stare into a mirror, gently touching the scar on her face as she sighed. That single scar had turned the fairy of Xiaoyao sect into someone everyone avoided. I comforted her. It looks frightening, but the injury isn't as serious as it seems. I'm confident I can restore your face completely. From then on, I buried myself in medical books, searching for every possible treatment and creating new prescriptions just to heal her face. At first, she insisted on applying the medicine herself, but after I stubbornly refused to give up, she finally let me do it. Every time it was time for her treatment, she'd quietly arrive at my pharmacy, obediently sit beside the medicine table, and wait for me to apply the ointment. While treating her wounds, I'd tell her interesting stories about the sect. She rarely replied, but the smile in her eyes grew warmer with each passing day. Day after day, without either of us realizing it, we slowly became used to having each other around. Then one day, junior Uncle Ji Chang'an returned. He was Shen Yuchu's first love, and, according to the story, the man she was destined to end up with. That day, she was unusually quiet. Even while I was applying her medicine, she looked completely distracted. Only then did I remember that Ji Chang'an was the male lead. No wonder she'd been acting so differently. After a brief silence, I said softly, "If you still can't let him go, then maybe you should go see him." Shen Yuchu gently shook her head. "Looking like this? I don't want anyone to see me." So even the future heroine lost her confidence when facing the person she loved. Smiling reassuringly, I said, "Senior Sister Shen, don't give up. One day, you'll become the pride of the entire Xiaoyao sect. When that day comes, not just Ji Chang'an, everyone will see how amazing you truly are." Shen Yuchu slowly raised her head and looked straight at me. "When you say everyone, does that include you?" I smiled without hesitation. "Of course, but when you finally rise to the top, don't forget who saved you." She nodded gently, and a faint smile finally appeared in her eyes. After observing her spiritual roots for several days, I finally came to a conclusion. Medicine alone isn't enough. If you want your spiritual roots to fully recover, you need to start cultivating again so they can slowly regenerate. Behind this medicine hall is a secluded forest. Go cultivate there. No one will disturb you. Shen Yuchu listened carefully before nodding seriously. A few days later, nearly 80% of the scar on her face had disappeared, and from then on she left early every morning and returned late every evening, quietly cultivating inside the secluded forest. A month later, Shen Yuchu's face had completely healed. But while she was cultivating, someone discovered her and reported her to the Sect Master, accusing her of secretly practicing demonic arts. They claimed she had lost control and nearly killed someone. By the time I found out, she had already been imprisoned on the Sect Master's orders. I knew the truth. She wasn't cultivating any demonic technique at all. Someone must have interrupted her cultivation, causing her to suffer chi deviation and lose control. I could have gone straight to the Sect Master and testified for her, but I waited. If I wanted her to truly remember my kindness, words alone weren't enough. I had to prove it with my actions. The more desperate her situation became, the more unforgettable the person who reached out to save her would be. As soon as I arrived outside the main hall, I heard the Sect Master asking the disciples how Shen Yuchu should be dealt with. Her spiritual roots were destroyed, yet in just over a month she managed to cultivate again. She must have practiced some demonic art and been possessed by demonic energy. Someone like her cannot be allowed to live. We should throw her into the alchemy furnace and erase this threat forever. I immediately recognized the disciple who had spoken. Not long ago, he had secretly gone gambling while off the mountain. Shen Yuchu caught him, had him punished with 50 lashes, and confiscated all of his gambling money. Now that he finally had a chance for revenge, there was no way he'd let it slip away. On top of that, Shen Yuchu had never been the type to defend herself, making everyone believe the accusations even more. Another disciple immediately agreed. Someone who walks such an evil path deserves to die. Killing her would be doing every righteous sect a favor. If she masters demonic arts, the entire world will suffer. In an instant, the hall erupted with voices demanding Shen Yuchu's execution. One accusation after another pushed her closer to death. Yet Shen Yuchu simply knelt in the middle of the hall without saying a single word. The Sect Master looked down at her and coldly asked, "Shen Yuchu, do you admit your crimes?" She calmly replied, "I cultivated only to recover my strength. I don't know what crime I've committed." "Silence!" another elder shouted angrily. "You should have been expelled from Xiaoyao sect long ago. If not for the Sect Master's mercy, you wouldn't even be standing here today. And now you still dare act so shamelessly." Another disciple pointed at her and yelled, "You claim you were only cultivating, but all of us saw it with our own eyes. Your body was surrounded by black energy, and your eyes turned blood red. That was clearly the sign of someone possessed by demons." As the crowd grew more and more emotional, the Sect Master suddenly raised his hand. A powerful blast of spiritual energy shot straight toward Shen Yuchu. Completely caught off guard, she was sent flying through the air before crashing heavily onto the floor, lying motionless. The Sect Master narrowed his eyes and declared, "There really is demonic energy." My heart instantly sank. In that moment, I finally understood everything. So this was the real culprit behind Shen Yuchu's downfall. There wasn't any demonic energy inside her at all, yet the Sect Master openly twisted the truth because no one in Xiaoyao's sect dared question his authority. "Guards," he ordered, "throw Shen Yuchu into the alchemy furnace and eliminate this threat to the world." Seeing that the moment I'd been waiting for had finally arrived, I stepped into the hall and shouted, "Wait!" Someone immediately mocked me. "Su Liqian, you're seriously here to play the simp again?" Another laughed. "You've been sticking so close to that demon woman lately. Aren't you afraid she'll drag you down too?" I ignored every single one of them and looked directly at the Sect Master, whose expression had subtly changed. "Sect Master, I can testify that Shen Yuchu has never practiced demonic arts. What happened that day was simply because someone interrupted her cultivation, causing her to suffer qi deviation." A disciple immediately sneered. "Su Liqian, do you think we're all blind? Plenty of us saw what happened that day. Just because you say she isn't practicing demonic arts doesn't make it true." Smiling calmly, I reached into my robes and pulled out an ancient medical text. I flipped to a certain page and read the passage aloud. After finishing, I raised the book and asked, "This describes the symptoms of qi deviation during cultivation. Tell me, isn't it exactly what all of you witnessed that day?" The hall instantly fell silent. No one could answer. But just then, another voice shouted, "Wait! Everyone in Xiaoyao sect knows you're in love with Shen Yuchu. She's practically been living at your place every day. The whole sect has heard about it. How can you prove you're not deliberately protecting her?" Before I could answer, Shen Yuchu, who was still lying weakly on the floor, forced herself to stand despite the pain. I hurried over to support her. Then I slowly looked around the hall before saying, "I swear on the honor of the Su family. If a single word I've spoken today is false, then may my family lose everything we have from this day forward. No matter what happens, the Su family will protect Shen Yuchu." The moment I invoked my family's name, even the Sect Master looked at me with hesitation. As for everyone else, they were completely stunned. I had risked my family's reputation just to save her. Surely this would leave an unforgettable mark in her heart. When everyone else chose to step back, I was the one who stood beside her. Shen Yuchu wasn't a heartless person. There was no way she wouldn't be moved. And that was exactly what I wanted. After saying that, I gently picked Shen Yuchu up and carried her out of the hall. Someone shouted after me, "Su Liqian, the moment you walk out that door, neither you nor that demon woman will ever belong to Xiaoyao sect again." I didn't even slow down. Since we could no longer stay in Xiaoyao sect, I took Shen Yuchu back to the small medicine house I owned outside the sect. The Sect Master's attack had been far too powerful. Shen Yuchu's body had already been weak, and now she was barely clinging to life. 3 whole days passed without her regaining consciousness. During that time, I barely slept, staying by her bedside day and night. After all, she was the heroine. My entire future depended on her. Late one night, exhaustion finally caught up with me, and I fell asleep while resting beside her bed. Sometime later, I vaguely heard someone calling my name, but I was too tired to open my eyes. Then I felt a warm hand gently brushing across my face. It was Shen Yuchu's hand. I instantly woke up, but I didn't dare move. This moment was far too precious to ruin. A few seconds later, she let out a soft laugh. "You really wore yourself out." I heard the quiet sound of footsteps as she carefully got out of bed. Not long after, she returned carrying a blanket and gently draped it over my shoulders. As she leaned closer, her warm breath lightly brushed against my neck. I had to use every ounce of self-control just to keep my breathing steady so she wouldn't realize I was awake. To make it even more convincing, I mumbled a few sleepy words. "Shen Yuchu, you'd better repay me properly someday." To my surprise, she smiled and answered seriously, "From now on, I'll be the one protecting you." Something about those words felt strangely different. Then, before I could react, I suddenly felt something soft and warm brush against my lips. It was light, gentle, and gone in an instant. My mind went completely blank. At such a close distance, I heard Shen Yuchu whisper softly, "Su Liqian, wait for me a little longer. Once I've become strong enough, I'll be the one protecting you for the rest of our lives." My heart couldn't help trembling. The next morning, when I opened the door, I happened to run into Shen Yuchu. "What are you talking about?" I laughed. "I haven't seen her in a long time." Shen Yuchu had always kept her word. The day she said she wouldn't be coming back, she never returned. Maybe that was for the best. According to the original story, Chang'an would be returning soon as well. The disciple realized I wasn't interested in gossip, so after a few awkward words, he waved goodbye and left. I headed back toward my medicine house. Even from a distance, I noticed smoke rising from the chimney. The moment I pushed open the door and walked into the kitchen, I froze. Shen Yuchu was standing there with her back to me, busy cooking. Hearing my footsteps, she turned around and smiled gently. Just a little longer. Dinner's almost ready. I was completely stunned. The genius cultivator Shen Yuchu was actually cooking for me. During dinner, she hesitated for a moment before speaking. Su Liqian, the Sect Master has officially passed the position onto me. 3 days from now is my succession ceremony. Will you come? That was fast. Shen Yuchu had finally become the new Sect Master, which also meant Chang'an would be returning soon. At last, the two of them would have the chance to confess their feelings and end up together, just like they were supposed to. My role in this story was finally coming to an end. The only thing left for me to do was leave gracefully and make way for the two of them. Looking into her hopeful eyes, I nodded. Her eyes instantly lit up with joy. She repeatedly reminded me, "You have to come on time. I've saved a seat just for you, and I have something very important to announce." My breathing unconsciously slowed. My mind flashed back to that night, the soft whisper by my ear, and the kiss she had secretly left on my lips. My face grew warm. She looked at me seriously and said once more, "Promise me you'll come." Smiling, I nodded. "I promise. I'll be there." My story was almost over. At the very least, I wanted our final meeting to be a beautiful one. After dinner, she left with unusually light footsteps. I kept smiling until her figure completely disappeared from sight. Only then did the smile slowly fade from my face. Walking over to the fence, I let out a short whistle. A hidden guard immediately appeared from the shadows. "Pack everything," I ordered calmly. "Burn this medicine house after a while." Then I asked, "Did you notify Chang'an?" The guard nodded. "Yes, he'll return to Xiaoyao Sect in 3 days. "And what did he say?" "He said, 'Thank you for making this possible. He won't waste the opportunity.'" No one else knew the truth, but as the only person who knew the original story, I understood everything. Chang'an had loved Shen Yuchu for a long time. He simply believed she only cared about cultivation and didn't want to disturb her, so he never confessed. But after everything they'd been through, especially after Shen Yuchu had nearly died, I was sure he wouldn't hide his feelings any longer. As the flames slowly consumed the little medicine house, I gave it one last look before quietly murmuring, "Shen Yuchu, this time, I'm going to break my promise." 3 days later, the entire Xiaoyao sect was filled with a solemn atmosphere. Every disciple had gathered for the ceremony, even those who had spent years training outside the sect. Representatives from every major sect had also arrived to witness the event. Everyone marveled at Shen Yuchu's achievements at such a young age. Some even openly declared that one day she might become the brightest star in the entire cultivation world. Dressed in the robes of the Sect Master, Shen Yuchu slowly walked up the long flight of stairs. Everywhere she passed, disciples respectfully knelt and greeted her as their new Sect Master. Deep down, however, Shen Yuchu only sneered. Many of the very people bowing before her now were the same ones who had once demanded her death in this very hall. Back then, they had tried everything to push her into the alchemy furnace. Now they could only lower their heads and beg for her favor. None of them deserved even a second glance. The only person she wanted to see still hadn't appeared. He had promised he would come. Every promise he had ever made to her, he had always kept. Today was the day she reclaimed everything she had lost. It was also the day she wanted to stand proudly beside him. Yet even after she entered the Great Hall and sat upon the Sect Master's throne, the seat reserved exclusively for him in the front row remained empty. Her fingers slowly dug into her palm. She couldn't stop staring at that empty seat. Earlier, before the ceremony had begun, several Xiaoyao sect disciples had noticed it too and quietly whispered among themselves, "Who do you think that seat is reserved for?" "Isn't it obvious? It's definitely for Su Liqian. He's the one who stood by the Sect Master through everything. But Su Liqian still hasn't shown up. Don't tell me the Sect Master dumped him. Impossible. Have you forgotten the Sect Master's reputation? She's famous for never forgetting those who helped her. There's no way she'd do something like that." It wasn't just them. Almost everyone present shared the same assumption. Everyone believed that, as Shen Yuchu's greatest benefactor, Su Liqian would receive the highest honor during today's ceremony. Then someone suddenly asked, "But what if that seat wasn't reserved for Su Liqian at all?" The words had barely left his mouth when a loud voice echoed from outside the hall. "Sorry I'm late!" A handsome man strode confidently through the entrance. Dressed in a simple Taoist robe with his long hair neatly tied back, he lifted his head and smiled warmly at Shen Yuchu. "I'm back, Sect Master." The disciple who had asked the question immediately became excited. "See? I told you that seat wasn't for Su Liqian." Another disciple looked surprised. So the rumors were true. It seems the Sect Master and Su Liqian really have gone their separate ways. But who is this man? Someone beside him answered in a low voice. "That's Chang'an." Everyone already knew who he was. Chang'an, the junior uncle, whom everyone believed had always been Shen Yuchu's true love. Even though neither of them had ever admitted it, rumors about the two of them had spread throughout Xiaoyao sect for years. One disciple sighed, "Honestly, I feel bad for Su Liqian. He worked so hard to save Shen Yuchu when she was at her lowest, and in the end, he got nothing. Even on the most important day of her life, She didn't choose him. Another nodded in agreement. Exactly. If I were Su Lichuan, I'd be heartbroken. The Sect Master really handled this poorly. Their discussion wasn't exactly quiet, and some of it reached Shen Yuchu's ears, but she didn't hear a single word. Her eyes remained fixed on Chang'an. She knew for a fact that she had never contacted him. She had no idea where he was. Yet somehow, he had returned at exactly the right time. On time. She had only told one person about today's ceremony, Su Lichuan. The answer couldn't have been more obvious. He had run away and abandoned her. Taking a deep breath to steady herself, she invited Chang'an to take his seat. After the ceremony ended, she quietly slipped away to a secluded corner to catch her breath. Soon, footsteps approached from behind. Without turning around, she asked calmly, "He told you, didn't he?" Chang'an stopped a few steps behind her, his expression complicated. He could clearly see the surprise in Shen Yuchu's eyes when she saw him return, but there wasn't the slightest trace of joy. The feelings he had buried in his heart for years were probably no longer needed. Even so, he wanted to give himself one final chance. "It was Su Lichuan who found me," he admitted. "He told me that the person you'd always loved was me. He asked me to come back and tell you how I feel. That's why I'm here today. I wanted to tell you." Before he could finish, Shen Yuchu suddenly turned around and interrupted him. "Forget it, junior uncle. It's all in the past now." Chang'an froze before letting out a bitter smile. A moment later, he took out a letter and handed it to her. "He asked me to give this to you." Shen Yuchu's hands trembled as she accepted it. Opening the letter, she immediately recognized the messy handwriting. It was unmistakably Su Lichuan's. "Shen Yuchu, by the time you read this, I'll already be gone. Don't come looking for me. Just focus on being a good sect master. You'll have many responsibilities waiting for you, and I know this is the life you've always wanted. As for me, I was never meant to live that kind of life, so I slipped away instead. I swear this is the only thing I've ever hidden from you, and it'll be the last. From now on, we'll each walk our own path. I wish you nothing but the best. Just remember, I was the one who saved you once." By the time she finished reading, Chang'an had quietly left. Shen Yuchu stared blankly at those few short lines as tears slipped down her face without warning. So Su Lichuan had been lying to her all along. The future he dreamed of had never included her. She had finally obtained everything she'd worked so hard for, yet the one person she truly wanted beside her was gone. She had originally planned to confess her feelings in front of everyone that day, and ask him to spend the rest of his life with her. But he had already seen through everything. He had even gone out of his way to bring Chang'an back for her. How thoughtful. Thoughtful enough to break her heart. Suddenly, she tore the letter into countless tiny pieces and whispered through gritted teeth, "Su Lichuan, if you think you can run away, then I'll just chase you." Meanwhile, in a quiet little town, I lay lazily on the back of my donkey with my eyes half closed. For some reason, I couldn't stop thinking about the report my guard had given me that morning. Shen Yuchu had been leading Xiaoyao sect for half a year now. The sect was thriving, and everything was moving in a positive direction. But strangely enough, nothing had happened between her and Chang'an. In fact, after staying in Xiaoyao sect for only a short while, Chang'an had resumed wandering the world 3 months ago and hadn't been seen since. Shen Yuchu had even publicly announced that she and Chang'an shared nothing more than a relationship between fellow disciples, strictly forbidding anyone in Xiaoyao sect from spreading rumors about them again. I couldn't understand it. I'd done everything I could to bring the two of them together. They'd had the perfect chance to confess their feelings, so how had things ended up like this? Then again, it wasn't really my problem anymore. I'd already done everything I could. My conscience was clear. Ever since leaving Xiaoyao sect, I'd been traveling all over the cultivation world. To avoid unnecessary trouble, I never revealed my real name and never stayed anywhere for too long. I wandered from place to place, treating illnesses and helping ordinary people whenever I could. Along the way, I experienced all kinds of customs and scenery. This little town happened to be especially peaceful, with kind-hearted people and beautiful surroundings, so I ended up staying longer than usual. My little donkey eventually came to a stop. Stretching lazily, I jumped off its back and headed toward my destination. Several familiar singing girls immediately greeted me with bright smiles and warmly welcomed me aboard a pleasure boat. This had become one of my few guilty pleasures. Listening to music, drinking tea, and enjoying poetry wasn't a bad way to pass the time. Inside the boat, they played a beautiful southern folk tune while gracefully dancing to the melody. In a good mood, I rewarded them with a few pieces of silver, filling the room with cheerful laughter. Just then, one of the younger performers nervously walked over carrying a jar of wine. Looking at me with pleading eyes, she spoke softly. "Sir, this is our finest daughter's red wine. We just dug it out today. Would you like to try some?" I had never been interested in drinking, and I was just about to refuse when she pouted pitifully. "The owner said that if I can't make a guest happy this time, he'll sell me away. Sir, I know you're kind. Please help me just this once." She was still so young. I couldn't bear the thought of her being sold into some horrible place. So, in the end, I nodded. Her face immediately lit up with joy as she poured me a full cup and handed it over. I accepted it and drank it in one gulp. "Not bad," I praised with a smile. "Keep the music going. keep dancing. The lively atmosphere quickly returned, but at that exact moment, a commotion suddenly erupted outside the boat. Then a familiar voice rang out. Su Lichuan, you're certainly enjoying yourself. I immediately looked up and froze. Standing at the entrance was Shen Yuchu, staring at me expressionlessly. But behind those beautiful eyes burned an anger I'd never seen before. I rubbed my eyes just to make sure I wasn't imagining things. It had only been a year since we'd last met, yet somehow she had become even more beautiful, and even more imposing. What? She asked coldly. Surprised to see me? I had absolutely no idea how to answer that, so all I could manage was an awkward smile. Sensing the tension, everyone else quietly slipped away the moment Shen Yuchu waved her hand. In the blink of an eye, the two of us were left alone on the boat, staring silently at each other. Shen Yuchu calmly sat down at the table beside mine and began drinking without saying a single word. The silence was painfully awkward. This wasn't good. I rolled my eyes, quickly deciding it was time to escape. Jumping to my feet, I blasted open the window with a wave of my hand and prepared to dive straight into the river. But even though Shen Yuchu never looked away from her wine, she moved far faster than I did. In the blink of an eye, she grabbed me by the belt. Her expression remained calm, yet no matter how hard I struggled, I couldn't break free. Senior sister, I laughed nervously. What are you doing? She finally looked up at me. Su Lichuan? How much longer are you planning to hide from me? Are you really that afraid of seeing me? I forced a smile. Senior sister, what are you talking about? I could hide from anyone, but never from you. You're lying. Her voice was calm, but every word hit like a hammer. Last month, I arrived at the inn where you were staying, and you left immediately. The month before that, I found the cottage you were living in, but you'd just left. Even the bedding was still warm. And the month before that, embarrassed, I quickly interrupted her. Shen Yuchu, she stared directly into my eyes. Do you want me to keep going? I fell completely silent. What was I supposed to say? I couldn't exactly tell her, sorry, but you're the heroine and I'm just a supporting character. We were never meant to end up together. She looked at me with obvious frustration. I just want to know one thing. Why do you keep running away from me? Did I do something wrong? There was deep disappointment in her voice, mixed with a stubborn determination that refused to let go. For once, I dropped my playful smile and answered seriously. The reason is simple. You and I belong to different worlds. We want different lives. I like living freely, wandering wherever I want. But you're destined to stand above everyone else. We're walking two completely different paths. The moment she heard that, she suddenly became emotional. I can live that kind of life too. I don't need fame or power. Why won't you believe me? I smiled gently and shook my head. Because then, you wouldn't be Shen Yuchu anymore. If you abandoned all your responsibilities just to stay with me, would you still be the person I know? And if I forced myself to live by all the strict rules that come with standing beside you, I wouldn't be Su Lichuan anymore either. As those words left my mouth, I suddenly understood everything myself. That's why she was the heroine, and I was only the supporting male lead. Even though I'd changed and stopped being the villain, the two of us were never meant to walk the same road. I was just an ordinary guy, drifting through life. Looking at her one last time, I smiled faintly. Shen Yuchu, be a good Sect Master, and don't come looking for me anymore. She blinked in disbelief. You say we're walking different paths now, but when you stood in front of everyone and fought the entire Xiaoyao sect just to protect me, that's when I knew I'd never be able to let you go. I sighed softly. The only reason you can't let go, Dip, is because you never truly had me. If I went back with you today, we'd end up unhappy within half a month. Do you believe me? She pressed her lips together without answering. Realizing we weren't going to settle anything today, I took advantage of the moment she fell silent, leaped through the window, and fled as fast as I could. Reaching the riverbank, I jumped onto my waiting donkey and immediately rode away. Even from far behind, I could still hear Shen Yuchu shouting through gritted teeth, Su Lichuan, even if you run to the ends of the earth, I'll find you. Letting out a long sigh, I shouted back with a laugh. Then go ahead and find me. Better yet, wait until you retire as Sect Master. Then I'll take you farming. I had only meant it as a joke, but Shen Yuchu's eyes suddenly lit up with hope. She smiled for the first time that day and called back, deal. The weather was beautiful and a gentle breeze brushed across my face. Somehow I found myself smiling. Maybe, when Shen Yuchu grew old, if she really did retire and come farm with me, that wouldn't be such a bad life after all. As for what the future held, only time could tell.